TelecomTV, where ICT connects.
Hello, this is TelecomTV. I'm Martyn Warwick, reporting from Northern California, Silicon Valley. We're at an ETSI meeting, that is ETSI, the standardization group, and we're talking about NFV, and I am speaking now with David Boswarthwick of ETSI itself. David, you're welcome. ETSI is a European organisation. We are in California talking about NFV, Network Functions Virtualization. How come Europe's involved?
That's a good question. Sometimes I ask myself the same. ETSI is definitely a European standards body. We're based in Europe, built in Europe for Europe. But many of our success stories, if you think about DECT or 3GPP, they were made in Europe by international companies for worldwide deployment. So definitely NFV is just a continuation of that heritage of European standards deployed across the world.
So for once, telecoms organisation, companies, service providers and so on are coming together to look at and formulate standards for NFV. How is ETSI helping?
It's interesting because ETSI definitely was a telecoms bastion. We were there to help the telecoms operators and the telecoms vendors come together. What we've seen over the past, let's say, 10 years is that the IT influence has been very strong. We've seen IP, we've seen IMS creeping into the telco solutions. And now NFV really is a continuation of that. But we're seeing very definitely the telecom players coming together with the IT actors and trying to make something for one solution.
Recently, ETSI published the first 5 NFV specifications. What are they, what do they mean, and when do you think they're going to be successful?
It was a pretty difficult thing to get done. I mean, NFV has been in place for under a year, 8 to 10 months. And the members of that group, and there are now over 300 people sat here in Sunnyvale. There's 850 people following what we do on the emails, so it's a massive group. And in 8 months, they've managed to get out 5 pretty good specifications that are useful to guide the industry onto the next step. And the next step really is developing those solutions both in ETSI and outside of ETSI.
Over the past few years, the telecoms industry has learned, rather more than the IT industry perhaps, that they can no longer be isolated. They cannot simply work on their own. There has to be collaboration and competition. That's what's happening with SDN and NFV. Is ETSI a catalyst in this collaborative movement?
I think it's a bit of both. ETSI is definitely at the forefront of this movement, luckily, because the members came to us to help them. But now that we've moved down the road 1 year, we've seen that we cannot do this alone. So we have to reach out to other SDOs in the telco domain. But what's more interesting is reaching out to other SDOs in the IT domain, open source, open standards, and how we're going to bring those together will be a challenge when we go back to ETSI, not only for NFV, but for standards making in the future.
There are lots of other standards organisations and specification organisations that are working on subjects adjacent to NFV. SDN, for example, which goes hand in hand with NFV most of the time, cloud, BSS, OSS, network management and so on. How is ETSI helping in this collaboration?
Certainly. ETSI's always worked with other standards bodies for all our solutions. You can't build a system based only on ETSI specifications. And ETSI really is very strong at bringing systems together. So if you look at 3GPP, there's a lot of IETF work in there. It's something that we've done traditionally for the past 25 years. NFV will be a challenge, but we're already reaching out to the other standards bodies, and we're actively studying which work will be done or is already being done in other standards groups. So that collaboration has begun. We send out liaison statements, they come to our meetings, so the collaboration is already in place and it will develop, it will accelerate, I think, in the next year.
What do you think is going to result from this ISG meeting here in Silicon Valley? What effect will it have on ETSI? What will you take back home to work on?
I think this meeting has been very important because it's the meeting following the publication of the high-level documents. And this really has enabled everybody in the community to think where they are and where they're going in the very short amount of time, which is only 1 year left till the end of the first period of the ISG. I think the leadership is definitely thinking about how they're going to move forward. And we see that in the working groups as well. They're taking the guidance from the leadership and saying this is the way we have to work in the next 12 months. So it's definitely people are checking where they are and realising where they have to go in the next year.
David Boswarthwick, thanks very much.
It's been a pleasure.
TelecomTV, where ICT connects.